Have you ever wondered how drug cartels dispose of their victims without leaving a trace? From 1996 to the late 2000s, an average of 30,000 people went missing every year in Mexico, and the authorities were left with the puzzling question of where all the bodies went. It turns out the solution was more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. Want to know? Let's dive into the bizarre and horrifying story of how El Pozolero became one of the most notorious stew makers in history. Santiago Meza Lopez, also known as El Pozolero, was a crucial figure in the narcotics underworld. He was captured by the Mexican army, and within days, a faction of cartel hitmen attempted to break him out of his cell. Santiago's importance lay in his expertise as a stew maker, a person who specialized in disposing of bodies for the cartels. To understand how he became El Pozolero and the significance of his role, one needs to look back at the fall of the Guadalajara cartel in the late 1980s. This led to the rise of violent rivalries and a high death toll until the bodies suddenly stopped appearing. Despite the belief that fewer bodies in cartel-related violence meant fewer victims, an average of 30,000 people still went missing every year from 1996 to the late 2000s. The authorities were left with a puzzling question of where all the bodies went. Santiago Meza Lopez was born into poverty and became a Mason in the late 80s. He caught the attention of the Arellano Felix organization, leading to him becoming a drug dealer and eventually a drug office keeper in Tijuana. Despite the danger, Santiago's loyalty, work ethic, and efficiency kept him both safe and successful. During a period of heightened conflict between Arellano Felix and their rivals, the Sinaloa cartel, thousands were killed and their bodies scattered throughout the city. This attracted the attention of both Mexican and American law enforcement, prompting the cartels to seek a more efficient method of body disposal. In 1996, the Arellano brothers received advice from foreign criminals on how to turn bodies into paste and dust, eliminating DNA evidence. While they found the method cost-effective and ingenious, they needed to trust someone with the task due to the long-term nature and the number of bodies to be disposed of. Drug lords Efrain Perez and Jorge Aureliano Felix were tasked by the Arellano brothers to find someone suitable for a dangerous experiment. Santiago Meza Lopez was chosen and invited into a room with a drum of caustic soda and raw meat, where he was ordered to stir until it dissolved. 6 months later, Santiago was called for a second experiment, but this time an audience of henchmen was present, and the subject was a dead victim. The Arellano brothers' Manhattan Project was bizarre and horrifying, but Santiago's willingness to participate made him valuable to the drug lords. Santiago was tasked with stripping the victim and stuffing the remains into a 200-liter barrel filled with a corrosive liquid. The group observed as the liquid frothed and turned red, leaving the body overnight. Upon returning the next morning, only a sludgy mess and bone fragments remained, successfully disposing of the evidence. Santiago quickly became the head of the disposal division, earning a $600 per week retainer for making people disappear. He received an influx of 30 bodies per month, which he disposed of at predetermined locations signaled by a phone call or headlights. Santiago had a surplus of solutions, investing heavily in oil barrels, latex gloves, and gas masks to dissolve human bodies. He earned the nickname El Pozolero for his process of liquefying and stirring bodies, resembling the cooking of Mexican stew, pozole. The process took up to 8 hours, leaving behind bones, teeth, and nails, which he burned and buried in fields. Under the cover of darkness, pickup trucks collected the barrels of liquefied humans, disposing of them down cliffs and canyons where they would not be found. Santiago became more skilled in his gruesome trade as he developed a more effective drainage system to handle the weight of the remains. Despite his line of work, Santiago remained obedient and never gave his superiors reason to complain, as evidenced by his lengthy career. He eventually began working for Theodore Garcia Cimental, a notorious extortionist and kidnapper known as El Teo, who was affiliated with the Arellano Felix organization. When El Teo defected to the Sinaloa cartel in 2008, he took Santiago with him to work for El Chapo. Santiago had risen to become the head stew maker for the Sinaloa cartel, even though it meant he would have to prepare his former colleagues as ingredients. It was a testament to his loyalty, to money, nothing else. Santiago evaded authorities for almost a decade, known only by his nickname El Pozolero. However, in 2005, 2 kidnappers working for El Teo were caught and revealed their boss had handed over 3 victims to a cleanup crew headed by Santiago. The kidnappers' testimony helped the government identify Santiago, who eventually made it to the FBI's list of most wanted criminals at number 20. Despite evading feds for 4 years, Santiago was eventually caught when he made a mistake in 2009. While partying with El Teo and other members of their crew in the Baja Seasons neighborhood and making noise with sex workers, someone nearby notified the police of their identities. The police quickly alerted the Mexican army. However, the soldiers were unable to apprehend the squad as El Teo was tipped off and fled with 30 of his men. Meanwhile, Santiago was preoccupied with cooking seafood and inebriated to the extent that he failed to notice his comrade's departure. On January 25th, El Pozolero was captured, and he later admitted to investigators that he had liquefied more than 300 victims. During his public appearance, he broke down and sought forgiveness from God, apologizing to the families of those he had stewed. He contended that he was not a monster, killer, or drug dealer, but rather a man trying to make ends meet. Despite Santiago's claims, his story was not believed by anyone. His victims' families reported that he had refused to work with the police and disclose the whereabouts of his liquefied victims. Additionally, Santiago's assertion that he had only killed 300 people was disproven by the chicken coop, a site in Maclovio Rojas where he disposed of the remains of his victims by pouring them into the drainage system. Santiago himself admitted that it was difficult to move the heavy remains and that they often clogged the pipes, requiring hot water to be used to clean them. The Mexican army eventually raided the chicken coop but found nothing, as they were unaware of the site's true purpose. In August 2017, the discovery of 3 new graves containing over 7,000 human fragments and 2,000 teeth confirmed the authorities' fears. Santiago's body count was not just 300, but rather in the tens of thousands. Further remains were found in an area called La Galleria, totaling at least 14 to 15,000 fragments. In 2012, Santiago Meza Lopez received a 10-year prison sentence related to organized crime charges. Despite ongoing discoveries of liquefied remains and his lack of denial, Santiago has yet to be charged for stewing the corpses. The reason for this delay remains a mystery, but some individuals have their own theories. In the past, the government has been linked to the cartel, and some suspect that certain corrupt officials are shielding El Pozolero, who is set to be released this year after serving a 10-year sentence. The victims' families are concerned about his potential release and only seek justice and closure. It is uncertain if the families will receive their desired outcome, and it remains to be seen if El Pozolero will be held accountable for his horrific actions. As we come to the end of this video, it's clear that the story of Santiago Meza Lopez, aka El Pozolero, is both fascinating and disturbing. It highlights the extreme measures that the drug cartels will take to protect their operations, even if it means resorting to gruesome and horrific methods. It's also a stark reminder of the power of money and how it can drive people to do unthinkable things. As we wrap up, we encourage you to share your thoughts on this story in the comments below. And that's all for today. We hope you found the story as fascinating and eye-opening as we did. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more informative videos here at Criminal Records, and we'll see you in the next video.